I think we should start. My name is Ray Inverno, and this is an event that I've organised in memory of the late Alan Taylor for Alan's wife, June Taylor. That's the good news. The bad news is June isn't here. I don't know what June is, but I'm 81, and Alan was my tutor, and so I imagine he was senior to me when I came here. So I imagine that June's in her 90s. Anyway, I'm going to give a talk first, and then my colleague Professor David Giroir is giving second, and my son Mark Inverno is giving third. And then we hope that will be about 6 o'clock, and then we're going to play some jazz for you for maybe half an hour. But I know that people have got buses to catch and trains to get, and they may not like our music. So do feel free to leave at any point. So I'm going to talk about not music, computing and AI, but computing, music and AI, because that's really my status. I came here in 1962 to read mathematics in the first year of the college when it was being built, and my tutor was Alan Taylor. I got married at the end of my second year to my wife, Pauline, who we celebrate our 60th anniversary this year. And we had 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, the oldest which is Mark. And we got to know June because Pauline and I in our third year used to babysit for them because they had 4 daughters. And so that's how we got to know June. And then Mark came up here in 1983. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Very good.
And we think we might be the first, second generation CATS people, but he might be, but we don't know. But he had the same tutor, Alan. And he said to me just now that he didn't actually go to lectures, but he just went to see Alan each week, and Alan gave him enough help to get him through to a degree that eventually led to him to get a chair. And I've been here before. I can't remember what year it was. I think it was 1990 when I was a visiting fellow that Alan set up for me. I came for 6 months. He was away at the time, actually. But I had a fellow's room in college, and I even had a couple of tutees that I looked after. So he fixed it up so I could finish writing my book. What book? Well, I had gone to Southampton University after doing a PhD at King's College London in 1970. And I had a temporary post there for 3 years. But the guy who I was replacing never came back, so they gave the job to me. So I was there for 36 years. And during that time, my field was general relativity, Einstein, gravitation, and all that stuff. And there was no one else there. I was an isolated singularity, and it took me ages to get a colleague, James Vickers, against all the odds. I was on a selection panel. There were 3 professors on it. I was an ordinary lecturer at the time, and they all wanted support in their area. But in the end, I won the day. Anyway, after I'd been there a few years, they did give me a course in general relativity, a third-year course, and I produced some notes. I produced the notes on the basis I wanted students to get to a particular endpoint. I wanted them to know about what they'd be interested in: black holes, gravitational waves, cosmology. So I designed a course, a very novel course, on the basis of the endpoints, which I won't go into the details of it, but I can tell you these notes, which has got self-study sections in it at the beginning for the technique of tensors, spread throughout the world. I know they got as far as New Zealand and Australia. And I had a research student who went on to become an editor at Cambridge University Press, and he said, "Why don't you get them published?" And I said, "Okay." So I submitted them. And I used to have a thing I called the cynics. It was called the syndics in those days. And they had a look at it, and they rejected it on the grounds that it wasn't a research monograph, which it wasn't. It was a teaching text. They didn't seem to understand. Anyway, I told Alan. He said, "Okay, I'll publish it." Quite amazing. He had a series which he could publish, so he did. And this is called Introducing Einstein to Relativity. It's my course, essentially, written up with some pretty pictures in there. And it's very specialist. It's really third-year mathematicians, physicists, possibly for first-year postgraduate students. But to my amazement, it took off, and it was used in other physics courses throughout the world, including Harvard, for example. And it sold over 20,000 copies. And so Oxford University Press said, would I write a second edition of it? Because it was getting a bit long in the tooth, especially with cosmology. In my day, cosmology was just a sub-bit of general relativity. And it's become a discipline in its own right now. And things change in cosmology almost on a weekly basis. So they said, would I write a modern version? The answer was I didn't want to do it because I was into other things at this stage. But I had this close colleague, James Vickers, and he retired a couple of years ago, and he said he would write the extra material. So he's written 3 new chapters, one on relativistic cosmology and the other up to date with gravitational waves and black holes, observations of black holes. And we have a second edition now. It's got a subtitle, Introducing Einstein's Relativity, A Deeper Understanding. And this is a presentation copy for the library, St Catherine's College, Oxford, in memory of my tutor, Alan Taylor. So, where are you, Christy? Please take that to the, not now, no, take it to the library.
We'll all go.
Okay, so, Alan Taylor sadly died in 1995, and they set up a memorial lecture series for him because he was a really important figure in all sorts of different ways, but in particular in mathematics. He was a pioneer, an inventor of the field that's called IAM now, Industrial Applied Mathematics. He started it up. And they've had an annual lecture series, and I've tried over the years with Mark to get into it, to pay tribute to our tutor, but they wouldn't have us because what we do is not IAM. We couldn't dress it up as such. So in the end, I decided I'd make an effort to put on a seminar for June, because sometimes I go to those lectures, and June's there as well, and they don't take any prisoners there. It's all very high-polluting mathematics. And so I said to her, okay, June, I will put on a seminar for you where you will understand it all, or most of it. So, sorry, June, but this is being recorded, so maybe she will get to see it. Can I do this? Right, computing. I was a pioneer in the field of computer algebra systems. That's getting computers to do algebra. X plus X equals 2X, X times X equals X squared, that sort of thing. Except these are huge calculations. They're usually what's called algorithmic, which means you know what to do at each stage. But if I could give you an idea of just how complicated this area is, I had a general purpose system, but it was looking at applications of general relativity. Einstein developed his field equations in, 1916, vacuum field equations for the gravitational field. And he thought they'd always be too complicated for anyone ever to find a solution. And to give you an idea of how complicated they are, I was the first person ever to use my system to calculate the, which arrow is it? No, it's the other arrow. This is the output. You don't need to know anything except that it looks quite complicated. Little g's, for those who want to know, is actually determinants of a 4x4 matrix. That's got 24 terms in already. And there's 10 things that you have to say equal to 0. This is the first, the mile 0, 0. This is the first 26 terms. There are 100,000 or more terms. And so if you were to print it out at normal size on a stack of paper, the paper would be about 3 meters high. So these are complicated equations, which is why I thought no one ever solved them. So it was an amazement, within 2 months of the theory being published, Schwarzschild came out with a solution. It turns out to be just about the most important solution. It's very simple, but it's very symmetric and static. But it's the paradigm for a black hole. Most of our understanding of black hole comes through this equation. So that's the field of exact solutions. No, definitely not got this. So my system was used to do large calculations. For example, I was at King's College at the time doing a PhD under the aegis of Bondi and Pirani. And Bondi, Hermann Bondi, had done some pioneering work in gravitational waves, gravitational radiation. And he had a student who spent all his time just calculating for him. It took him 6 months to do this calculation, the major part of the calculation. And I checked it on my system, and in those days it took 4 minutes to do it, and discovered 4 errors. So the point was that there was a lot of calculations to do. This guy was very systematic, the way he did the calculations. And then there was you can actually write down some what's called an ansatz, an assumption about what the mathematics of the solution is going to look like, and then you can see if you can solve the field equations. And Harrison came up with 40 solutions. We never directly computed this R00, the Ritchie tensor, to see if it was indeed 0. And I had a colleague called Ian Cohen who was given that as his research task, check that the Carré symmetries are actually vacuum. He did about 3, it took him about a year, and he realized he was going to require several lifetimes to complete it. So he abandoned it. But I, a research student of mine, did actually check that they are indeed vacuum, and in fact you could classify them as well. So the good news is there's thousands of exact solutions that have been discovered, and we have the technology to process them and to understand the geometric content. That's the good news. The bad news is that virtually all of them are pathological. They're just strange things that the partial differential equations throw up, and you need boundary conditions to make them physically realistic. For example, we don't have a two-body solution. in general relativity. So what do you do if you want to know what happens if you put two black holes together? The answer is, oh, this is, by the way, the sheep family. So I started, this algebraic manipulator was my thing, Lamb written in Lisp, and then I did a machine code version for the Atlas machine, which was the fastest computer in the country at the time, and then it moved to the CDC, and then Ian Curry and Ian Frick in Stockholm Physics Institute built one for the IBM 360, I think it was. And then Inge Frick was given the task of making it machine independent. And he developed a thing called Sheep. I don't know if you get the joke, it's lamb grown up sheep. And then another, Stockholm Institute took it over, and another student of Bertrand Laurent, who was the head of the institute, developed something called Classy for classifying geometries. And then another student developed another extension called S-Tensor Symbolic Tensor Manipulator. Let me do that. Right, so exact solutions, big part of the field at first, but it doesn't seem to take you very far. But you want to solve equations. So what do you use? You use computers again, this time numerically, solving Einstein's equations numerically on a computer. And most people use the 3+1 decomposition of space-time. So space-time is 4 dimensions. And what you do is you assume at time t equals 0, should we say, you've got the whole of space-time, the whole of the universe. And then you want to set up initial conditions and then have a look at what happens. So you take two black holes, you put them in, and you can evolve the equations forward in time numerically. The problem is, how do you put the two black holes in to start off with? And that is a real difficult problem, especially if you don't really know what's called the freely specifiable independent initial data should be. Turns out it's a very complicated argument. Basically, a gravitational field has 2 degrees of freedom. You sort of go like that, a bit like that. And you can't identify it easily in 3+1. So I developed a more general formalism called 2+2. You can read about it in my book. James put it in, I can. This way you can explicitly calculate what the gravitational degrees of freedom are. And indeed, if you vary the Lagrangian, those who know what I'm talking about with respect to it, you get the dynamic equations. And at Southampton, we also introduced Cauchy characteristic matching, which is a technique for connecting an interior solution right the way out to infinity. I was an isolated singularity, as I was telling a couple of people before, at Southampton when I went there on a 3-year temporary job in 1970. And it took about 7 years before I had a colleague. I was on an appointment committee with 3 other professors who all wanted support in their area. But I won the day, got James Vickers. James Vickers and I then set up a group, gravity group, and it grew and it grew and it grew, and it's now the largest research group in the university in Europe, I think. I gave a talk there last term. I asked the head of the department, Niels Anderson, someone who I appointed, how big it was, and he said he didn't know. But I gave the seminar, and there were over 40 people in the room, and that's staff, fellows, visitors, research students. So it's big. Music. I was classically trained, went through the grades. I discovered jazz when I was 15. I formed my own piano trio. And would you believe it, as schoolboys, we even opened a jazz club in North London called the Bushy Modern Jazz Club. I bought myself a bass, taught myself to play bass, taught my best friend, Jerry Regan, to play bass, helped another friend who's called Dave Drum, would you believe, to play drums. And I had a trio, and we used to play at Garden Fates, and we always used to go everywhere by bus in those days, because no one had a car, so we'd take a whole kit of drums and a bass on a bus. When I came out to, so we set up this club. When I came to Southampton, I saw an advert for a pianist for a group by Eric Gutt, as his name was. Eric Gutt was a very fine trumpeter who'd won a scholarship to Juilliard in the States, awarded by Dizzy Gillespie. But he hated his father, so he left the States and came to this country to read philosophy at London University, but lived in Oxford. Anyway, he set up this group, and he didn't like my piano playing. I was very much influenced by Oscar Peterson at the time. He didn't like that. He was much earlier. So in the end, I just bought a flute because I got my first grant check, and I was just learning to play it, making all the noise in the halls in St. Catherine's that were just about being built by then. I moved into my 3rd term, my first year. And in this group, I played flute and drums, would you believe? But Eric was an unusual guy, very unusual guy. He changed his name to Stubbs, so his father couldn't trace him. And so we had to have all our publicity changed from Eric Gutt Trio to Eric Stubbs Trio. He then got a job at Aston University, I think it was, teaching philosophy, but he fell out with the people there and got sacked, I think. And he's written some really weird books on philosophy and plumbing. I really don't understand Eric. He's something else again. I did play drums and bass for a while in the Oxford University Modern Jazz Club. Why didn't I play piano? Because the piano in the pub that Herkimer was at, I can't remember what it's called, was out of tune. It's a semitone flat. And I couldn't play in C sharp and F sharp. I don't know if you can. But they had a guy that could. So I played bass and drums a bit. And I've operated for a semi-professional musician for over 60 years, winning some awards, appearing in jazz clubs, festivals, radio and TV broadcasts. And if you look on YouTube and you put in Ray D'Inferno, Tina Jazz Festival, you can see us playing at this International Jazz Festival from where my father came. So it has a particular significance to me. And if you go to part 3, you can see the drummer at the time, Andy Trim, playing the square. So he went around playing the cathedral square where the festival was being held. I ran for the Adult Continuing Education, a jazz workshop for 15 years. And I always needed a rhythm section, someone to play bass and someone to play drums for the students to work with. And sometimes I would have my son on drums and my tutee, ex-tutee, David Durrell, on bass. And we were talking about those days just many, many years ago when they used to first play for me. I've been major involvement in jazz education, administration and promotion. I don't really want to go into it. I ran the Southampton Jazz Club for years. I set up Musicians Cooperative, ran it for 20 years. I was last chairman of Jazz South, regional jazz organisation, did all the jazz in the south and southeast of England. I put on 11 jazz festivals in Southampton. The key thing was I introduced jazz studies into the music department at Southampton, and I taught it for 3 years, and it's still going. You can do a pathway in jazz studies at Southampton University, so I'm proud of that. And in fact, a couple of years ago, I don't know what it is now, but they were the top music department in the country, according to the Guardian League table. And I asked the head of the department why, and he said, because we offer jazz and popular music options. You can see my albums if you put in Ray D'Inferno Bandcamp. Mark got a European Research Council grant to develop the arts for people in Europe for free. And he asked me to write a course on jazz, which I didn't really want to do, but I wrote one on learn jazz piano. And it was a very successful grant, but they didn't get continued funding because Brexit came along, so it looked like it would wither on the vine. But Mark was able to get this organisation called FutureLearn to take it on. It took me quite a bit of effort to get it into their format. But they've been running it, I don't know, that's what 2015 now, I can't remember when it started. Can you?
No, that sounds good.
Sounds about right, yeah. And I had, to my amazement, I thought, have 10, 20 people doing it. But I've had over 50,000 people across the globe starting this course. Of course, how many finished is another issue, which I don't have. So just to give you an idea, this is what me talking about what is improvisation, to give you an idea. So I've got a studio in my house. Oh, the sound doesn't seem very good. Is there any sound? Try again. No? Is there any? This is
when you run a PowerPoint, you
suppress the sound.
Or something to say sound as you.
Oh well, you don't have to hear me playing the piano on the course because I'm going to be playing the piano at the end. If you're still here, by the way, feel free to go when you want because this is probably going for a long time. In hopes that eventually June might come. Right. Computing, music, jazz, AI. I have little to say about it other than I gave, I think, the first course in the UK on AI in 1983. And I used the book Lisp by Winston Horn is my copy, which was written in 1981. So it's pretty fresh off the ground. We were, I think, as I said, the first university to have an AI course. And one of my students on it, my star student, was Dave Durrell. And Dave's helped me with that course ever since because there's a program called Eliza. And they kept changing the dialects of Lisp and I couldn't get it to work. And Dave has got it to work. He's got a big list of Elizas that's in his pocket. He's going to say a little about Eliza. So the course is sort of teaching Lisp. And it's a very different sort of language from a conventional programming language. In fact, the myth goes that you can learn Lisp in about 4 weeks, unless you know other programming languages like Fortran or whatever, in which case it takes 6 weeks because you have to unlearn the way of thinking. It's a functional program, so it uses a lot of what's called recursion, functions defined in terms of themselves. And the applications, we've got research, pattern matching, vision, voice simulation. Voice simulation we had a program then that had the same voice as Stephen Hawking. And Stephen, hooray! June! Oh, thank God you're here. Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to have to start again. Is that okay?
Hello, June.
Come and sit down the front, because I know your hearing is not very good. June, try and come and sit at the front.
I'm sorry.
It's lovely to see you anyway. Let's have a round of applause for June. So luckily you're just here in time for me to finish. Now, I'm talking about my course, the first course I think in the UK in artificial intelligence. We did some theorem proving. The Turing test you've heard about, where you have someone in a neighbouring or something in a neighbouring room and you communicate with a mobile phone or a keyboard or something, and you have to decide if the thing in the other room is a computer or a person. And there's a little toy program called Eliza. It's really good fun. I'll show you. David sent me this. And Tower of Hanoi, which is a nice way of showing how recursion works. And then in my day, when this course was going on, Lisp was big in the area of music, because in those days people wanted to understand how understanding works and get computers to work like humans. It's very different now. Mark and Dave will tell you about it, but it's basically big data sets and you have stochastic mechanisms for controlling these data sets, or not, it's the case with Kate. But there was this place called IRCAM in Paris, where they have a concert room which has special sound control surfaces. They've got these kind of prisms which they can rotate, so you can make it very dry or very wet. But they used to have loads of composers using Lisp to help them in their construction of composition. These are classical formal composers or electroacoustical music. But so in those days, Lisp was big. And Dave became a world authority of Lisp. I think he knows more about it than probably anyone else. So he can tell you a bit about it. He sent me this the other day. This was when he was a student at Southampton. And they could play with this during their time. And so let me see if I can read this to you. So you probably can't see it. So you talk to Eliza in this program. It says, please tell me your problems. This is Dave. I was telling you earlier that I'm tired. Were you really? Yes. You seem quite positive. Not really. I'm not sure I understand you fully. I'm tired and I'm hungry. Is it because you're tired and hungry that you came to see me, Eliza says. Yes. You're sure? No. Are you saying no just to be negative? No, Eliza says. Please go on. I'm always tired. Can you think of a specific example? Now. What does that suggest to you? That I haven't had enough sleep? You said that you haven't had enough sleep? Yes, that's what I said. Do you feel strongly about discussing such things? Not at all. How does it relate to your problem? I'm tired because I haven't had enough sleep. How long have you been tired because you had enough sleep? This is last Saturday. What other problems do you have? Just that one. I'm not clear as to what is your situation. Eliza, I'm very tired. Do you believe it normal to be very, very tired? No, I don't. Don't you like talking to me, Eliza says. Yes, you're a good laugh. I'm not sure I fully understand you. You make me laugh. We were discussing you, not me. You are just a machine. Do computers worry you? Machine, computers, you see, it had a sort of inkling of understanding, and it could store things in its memory, and it could refer to you. Earlier, you mentioned something or other, it says. Okay, finally, I showed you what Tower of Hanoi is moving a stack of disks onto another target pin using the other pin as workspace, and that was showing when you came in. And here's the program for doing it. So the idea is that there's some monks playing this game with 64 disks, and when they finish, it'll be the end of the world. Should we be worried? And the answer is, if you do the calculation, is if they do one move a second, it takes about 10 times the age of the universe as we believe it to be from the Big Bang. So the answer is no. And here is the program. So the first one is just calling the pins A, B, and C, and the number N is the number of disks you've got. The second one is just telling what you do. It just says, stick them in this order on this pin. And then the last one is this recursive mechanism that says, well, you've got N disks, move N minus 1 to the spare, then take the big disk and put it on the target pin, then move the N minus 1 onto the target pin. And so it just reduces the problem down by one each time until you get down to one. There's only one disk to move, and that's easy. So it's a beautiful little idea of recursion. So beautiful, I think, that I'll stop at that point and pass on to Dave. Thank you.
Do you want to mention that you gave the book to June, that you've given the book to the library and it's based on that? Maybe just say 1 minute.
This is my second edition of my book written by my colleague James Vickers, and it says presentation copy for the Library of St Catherine's College, Oxford, in memory of my tutor, Alan Taylor, signed by me. So I gave them a copy of my first one. I got a nice letter from the master, so that was good. Where can I sit next to you?
Thanks very much, Ray. Yes, so they asked me what year you taught that, and I actually, to my own surprise, found that I had the lecture notes in my office, and that's that ELIZA program. And I also loaded ELIZA, the Lisp code, onto my laptop, and it runs, and I'll show you that in a second. I have the same book. I also have the Lisp 1.5 Programs Manual, which is, you have to have that if you're a Lisper. Anyway, enough of that. So I'm going to talk about this chronological. I'll tell you some of the things that have happened. Really, I'm talking about AI and music in the context of AI. I'm going to come at it from a technical viewpoint, perhaps, whereas Mark will come at it as a musician. So let's see what happens. But first of all, I mean, to a point that Ray made, I don't know if you've ever come across this tool. It's called the Google Ngram Viewer, and you can, anyone can use this. You can look up words and phrases and find out the frequency of their occurrence in the Google Books collection. So this is an interesting plot. The red curve is what happens if you search for machine learning between 1950 and the present day. And the blue curve is what happens if you search for AI. And my point is, they are separate projects. So what Ray taught me in 1983 in the Lisp and AI course was that blue curve. And as you can see, it kind of peaked in 85, 90 and so on. It was the world of knowledge representation, expert systems and so on. Machine learning, on the other hand, which is a separate project with neural networks, has come along and suddenly really taken off today because we have a lot of data, we have a lot of computation, and both of those curves go up at the end because now those terms have become synonymous. Everyone's talking about AI and machine learning as if they're the same thing, but they were separate projects. And what Ray's been describing is the blue curve, which is where I come from as well. I was telling, thanks for my DPhil students for coming along, and explaining what Ray had taught me, and it's actually quite a long list because it was Lisp, it was AI, it was general relativity. I do have this book. I remember you saying computing the Bondi metric as a coursework, as a rite of passage.
That's right.
But also through the adult education jazz workshop, also jazz. So I loaded ELIZA on my laptop yesterday. This file was saved in August 68.
Wow.
And I tried a different prompt. It asked me to tell ELIZA my problems, so I said I'm a bass player. Is it because you're a bass player that you came to me? Yes, and I love Lisp. What else do you love? I love Mark's drumming. Tell me more about Mark's drumming. Mark is a multi-instrumentalist. Suppose Mark were not a multi-instrumentalist. Now, that's going back to about 65, when Joe Weizenbaum produced ELIZA. It wasn't there to demonstrate how amazing AI is. It was there to demonstrate how rapidly people will believe the chatbot program is this sort of anthropomorphic entity they interact with, completely preempting ChatGPT. But I want to go back a bit further. So back in around 1843, these two characters, Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage. Charles Babbage had designed the analytical engine. This is an artist's impression, Sidney Padra's impression, of this vast mechanical steam-powered computer, which the architecture of which resembles the general purpose computers of today. It was another 100 years before these things got built. So that's an amazing piece of engineering. And Ada Lovelace is often held up as the first women in computing, as a sort of icon of women in computing, first programmer. That's very important. But I think what people miss, and I've tried to redress this balance to an extent, is she was a musician. So not just a STEM icon, but really a STEAM icon. She translated a talk about the analytics engine into English from French, and she extended it with lots of footnotes to about 3 times the length. And these are 2 of the things in what she wrote, but each of these quotes underpins an entire research community today. So the first one, supposing, for instance, that the fundamental relations of pitch sounds in the science of harmony and musical composition were susceptible of such expression and adaptation, the engine might compose elaborate and scientific pieces of music of any degree of complexity or extent. So this underpins the whole algorithmic composition world, and you'll see that quoted in many papers. And also in my sort of digital humanities world, we wonder what she meant by a scientific piece of music, and that's a whole other discussion. But she also wrote that the analyst engine has no pretensions to originate anything. It can do whatever we know how to order it to perform. It can follow analysis, but it has no power of anticipating any relations of truth. Its province is to assist us in making available what we're already acquainted with. That she wrote other things about this as well, and that sort of assertion, it sounds as if she's saying the computer isn't creative, led to things known as the Lovelace questions, which tease apart different aspects of what do we mean by a computer being creative, a computer doing things that would require creativity in humans. So there's a whole community called computational creativity who are trying to get computers to do things indistinguishable from humans, who come out of that piece. And I'm just going to touch on that one first before I probably go back to the other. So back just pre-pandemic, 2019, I worked with a mathematician colleague here, Marcus de Sotoy, and a composer, Robert Laidler, who was at the Royal Northern College of Music as a PhD student. He's now here in Oxford and Jesus College. And they did a Turing test type thing. So the first of these images is at the Barbican, the second is at the Royal Northern in Manchester. This one down here is the Royal Institution Christmas lectures in 2019, the 3rd lecture. If you want to see this, you can find it online, but you need to know that this occurs 3 minutes before the end. So you might need to fast forward with the closing credits coming over it. And what we did in these tests, Rob composed a piece of music, which was real Bach and fake Bach. We were working, I'm at the Alan Turing Institute, the National Institute for Data Science and AI, and I've been working with Rob on this. And we asked the audience to determine which bits were human and which bits were AI composed, holding up a card which is blue or yellow to say which it was. You can see some of the cards in the lower image here. Actually, I ran this again a couple of weeks ago. It's still a really, really interesting exercise. And actually, it's really, really difficult to tell. Unless you're someone who knows Bach very well or performs Bach a lot, and then you can tell that the AI isn't so easy. But this is great for public engagement, great for discussing AI and music. But we didn't want to be talking about, can AI replace humans? We're not interested in that discussion at all. We're interested in how can AI help humans be creative, be part of that creative process, be an assistant in the process, not a replacement. So also 2019, Robert created this piece of contemporary classical music, which was made with AI about AI. This was performed at the Barbican, themed on Lovelace. Again, she doesn't leave us alone. This piece was performed, including a text that was AI generated. I won't go through this in detail, but we generated the text here in Oxford by taking the correspondence between Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage, which is on deposit in the Bodleian. And we went through what now would be referred to as a large language model, but we needed a language model based on 19th century correspondence, not on the internet today. And so we built a language model based on a corpus in the Bodleian called Electronic Enlightenment. And we generated this kind of ghost Ada Lovelace, and Rob would send me a prompt and I would send back the response. There's lots of things we could say about that. And occasionally it was really, really good, and then we Google it and it was something Ada Lovelace had actually said, which is one of the issues. So that was our early work generating music and also in composition and also generating text. Then there was a pandemic, and my colleagues at the Royal Northern, together with a colleague at the University of Manchester, Ricardo Clement, got together the PhD students and over 2 or 3 years produced lots of music using AI. And this is all online, and I recommend people look at it. It's obviously an in-joke that this group is called unsupervised because that's a way of doing machine learning. We also, events in colleges, just coming out of the pandemic, did the single most complicated production, a live event that I've ever done. This was, it's called Sound of Contagion. It came out of Torch, which was Research Centre in the Humanities, and the collaboration with Berlin. We had people in Cape Town on Zoom, people in South Africa, in Berlin on Zoom. We had 2 ensembles in different rehearsal rooms. We had the main auditorium here in Boston, and there was so much tech, and it worked. I can't believe, I never want to do it again. I can't believe, and that's one of the things about AI music. You end up with a lot of IT in the performances. I've got a laptop there, that's more than enough for me tonight. But I wanted to mention that also because Torch, for people in Oxford, has just created a performance hub. So there's now a focus in this institution for people involved in performance and practice research. There's always been a lot going on across the institution, but there hasn't been a place where there can be a web page and we can talk about these things. And everything I'm talking about here is the sort of thing we're talking about in the performance hub. But now I want to go to Lisp again, actually, and that sort of earlier period. But if we just read a little bit of this description. Voyager is a non-hierarchical, interactive musical environment that privileges improvisation. In Voyager, improvisers engage in dialogue with a computer-driven, interactive, virtual improvising orchestra. The computer program analyzes aspects of human improvisers' performance in real time, using that analysis to guide an automatic. Okay, I won't read it all. You get the idea. This sounds like a very sophisticated, real-time, interactive, improvising AI. What you need to know is that was 1986. Okay, so George E. Lewis, at Columbia now, is a trombone player, and he built this software way ahead of its time. But the point is, you get the sense these days that music and AI has just been discovered. But it hasn't. We have been doing it absolutely from the outset, as Ray said. And I had the privilege, October before last, to work with George. This is a performance again at the Royal Northern with 5 instrumentalists and a piano, which is this clavier, which was being played by Voyager. This is George introducing it. And we used an enhanced version of Voyager with using software that I'd written to recognize sonic gestures, acoustic gestures, the side of the trombone, tongue fluttering or whatever, so that the musicians could hand off between them in the improvisation. So this is a modern extension of Voyager. And in fact, we're going in May to New York with this. And these are my colleagues from the Royal Northern, and we'll be performing with the software there at the International Contemporary Ensemble, which is very exciting. So,
will it be live streams, Dave? Will we be able to watch it?
I'll find out.
Yeah, it'd be great.
But I just wanted to, if I just pop back a couple of slides. This guy playing the tuba, top left, his name's Jack. He's a very good tuba player. First time I saw him, he was playing microtonal tuba, but that's another story. We did some work with Google, and Google have produced some really good AI tools, machine learning tools for musicians, and one of them is called DDSP, which actually stands for the Differentiable Digital Signal Processing. But it's a really nice tool because it just drops into your normal workflow, as it were, in the music technology of production today. And it takes the expression of the instrument that you're using and maps it to a different instrument. Their tuba sample that comes if you use DDSP is Jack on that tuba that you just saw. I may demonstrate this later, we'll see. So there's a real-time use of AI, and it's not just saying what's the note, let's play it on a different sample. It's mapping the expression across perfectly. So Rob went off and did some stuff for the BBC Philharmonic and did their first ever. He's interested in AI, and the orchestra did their first performance of his piece called Silicon involving AI. This is a video which you can find online, which is a New Scientist article about it. While he was doing all this orchestral stuff, me in Keble Road in the Eve Research Centre got together with the local hip hop collective from Blackbird Leys. So the guy there is, you can see is Rawls, and the others are Kingsley, Easy, and Samuel taking the video there. And it's a little pop-up studio in our conference room. And they produce music, hip hop, for every decade from the 50s, 60s, 70s. Obviously, there's a bit of a thought experiment going on there, but to the future. And this was us doing the future track. And then again, I used that text. So based on Rawls's hip hop lyrics, we generated some AI hip hop. This is this piece of music, which you can find on Bandcamp, is called "In the Hands of Painters." But yeah, it's not bad, and I can show you in great detail what we generated and what Rawls used and how he responded to what the AI had done. So AI becomes a kind of distorting mirror. It learns your stuff, it produces stuff. You see that, you respond, it responds, and so on. So that's part of it in the creative process. We did it in the old fire station. This is me upstairs in the sort of black box theatre. I was the curator of the future. I like that title. And you can find these things online. But just thinking of the future. So George was talking about this back in the 80s. If you talk to him today, this is a recent quote from him. Thus, it's come to pass not only that improvisations by creative musical machines are often indistinguishable from those created by humans, but also that they need not be so distinguished. So we spend a lot of time agonizing over it. Was this AI? Was this human? Yeah. I think we should just give up. AI is pervasive. Tools we've been using for a long time may or may not have AI in them now. When we did that mock-up of the future piece, we just pulled in every AI tool we could into the workflow, and there are many, many tools. It's not something that's about to happen, it's something that's already happened. The epoch of AI is with us, and it's pervasive, and we need to understand what it means to be a human being living in that environment. And my concern, I suppose this is my message, I work at places like the Alan Turing Institute. We have fantastic computer scientists, mathematicians, statisticians, software engineers, building these AI systems, but no one's asking the question, what does it mean for a creative human to be interacting in real time with the AI? We are asking that question with the music work. So music it's not just about the application of this to music, it's about the application of music as a lens to being the creative human. So you can see my pitch here. I often finish my talks by trying to encourage the AI community to actually think about living in the moment with the AI. And I'll close there. There is incidentally going to be a conference in Oxford in September.
Yeah.
Over to Mark.
I'm working on 3 papers for it, Dave, so I'll get one in. Thank you, Dave. Right, I really, really, really do need the sound and the image to work. So, Dad, if you want to talk for a minute about what's happening afterwards, so I need some technical help. So, otherwise, I'll just play the piano for 20 minutes. Screen mirroring. Where's my technical friend gone? Okay, brilliant. So if I do it from here.
So after Mark's finished, the idea is that the 3 of us are going to recreate old times and play some tunes for you. But it might not be to everybody's taste, especially if you're a music lover. So we will understand if you leave during the course of it. I mean, I spend most of my time playing in pubs and bars and stuff, so I'm used to people leaving. And usually it's a noise of a coffee machine going or whatever. So please feel free. It's an informal. It's more for fun for us to relive our old days and to give Julie something where she can understand it, because there's nothing to understand really.
Right, okay, so I'm going to be less than 20 minutes. The reason I'm typing there is because I'm responding to what Dad and Dave are doing, and I'm trying to rewrite my talk every time one of you says something. So that is improvising. I'm not doing my emails, I promise. So look, I've never spoken at St. Cat's. I was trying to type in yay there because this is the first time that I've come back and given a talk. So what a joy. It's not that much of a joy that the technology, as Dave says, even giving a talk. Oh, that's not very fair, is it? Hold on. Try another. I'm going to need my friend back.
Can you come back? Can you stay here? Just for every slide. You need oh, no.
Is that okay?
No. Yeah, there. That's a good place.
I think I need you with me for this whole talk. Is that okay? I think we've established that. And now, okay, now I can't see. Don't work with technology. Isn't this extraordinary? It works absolutely fine. Oh well, I have to do it from here. One of the things I thought was absolutely brilliant, and now my machine's just got a circle. It's extraordinary.
You've got the wheel of death there.
Maybe we should just do a tune or something. No, it's crashed. Look, the whole machine has crashed. Golly. Right, let's do that again. Let's try. I promise it's worth it. Well, I'm not.
Who can't promise that?
Yeah, it'll be fun. So I have to force quit the software I'm using and reload it. It says it's not responding. We don't know why. And that's not a problem I've ever had with Keynote not working. Dave, have you ever had Keynote not working?
I don't use it.
So no, you haven't by logical deduction. So here I go again. And we will play music if this doesn't work. Dun, 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 dun.
Just while you're doing that, when I'm going to play later, it looks like I'm going to be playing this piano. It's got an internal sound, but I'm not. I'm going to use it as a mother keyboard, and I'm playing a program on this iPad called Ravenscroft 275. Ravenscroft 275, a German who went to the States and invented a piano with all new materials, and they cost about $200,000, so they're quite expensive. But then he got interested in technology, and then he produced, with loads of sound modules, produced this program called Ravenscroft 275. It costs about £100. And it's just amazing the control you can have. You can even control the sound of the pedal going down on the piano. So I'm going to be playing that, and so it might take a little while to get going because he's taking the plug out of the piano.
Sorry, I am going to look. First thing I want to say is how brilliant. So Ray decided on the photographs to use. This is a picture of me last year giving a talk in Barcelona. A picture of Dave from last year giving a talk somewhere. This picture is from 1983. So your dad looks younger than you. So I was so upset about this that I thought to myself, that and June, that's what I look like. The only picture I could find was of my friend Claire. She's the only one who had a camera. But that's what I looked like 18 when you took the picture of you. And I wanted to say, because it was mentioned earlier, June, that to my great shame, I went to one lecture and I thought it was a bit boring and stopped. And if it wasn't for your husband, he taught me, even though I didn't go to lectures, 1 hour every week for 3 years, and he got me through. I wouldn't be here today as a professor without Alan, so thank you. And next time, Dad,
It's a good job there's undergraduates
if
here.
you put a picture of yourself in, I'm going to go with this picture. So Dave mentioned creativity, so I am going to speak about creativity. So I couldn't resist, so I wasn't going to. I'm going to show you some systems, then I'm going to talk about it, because this is big, and in much the same way that Dave did, and then I'm going to try and play. That's the story, as it. Dave used Ngram, so did I. I just went online and looked at creativity. So look, post-war, this word appears from nowhere. And this is why, Ray was talking about bringing jazz into classical music in Southampton. Dave was talking about bringing the humanities. This is why I'm so
lost for words.
I don't know what to do. What do I do? Look, here's the point. Here's the point. Creativity was a word that came around in the post-war. The word creative is slightly overloaded. You go back to the way the Bible was put together. You look at Greek and Latin. Thank you so much. I think you're going to... If I can buy you a drink afterwards, I would love to. I remember putting on a workshop with someone called Maggie Bowden and John McCormack. Maggie Bowden was a really important, wonderful person, but she was a cognitive scientist, and she was built very much in this post-war tradition of what creativity is, which is a power in the mind to create novelty, to create value. But actually, pre-war, there were other for me, much more critical coming through the Enlightenment time about what creativity actually is. So this suggests that you could measure it, it suggests that computers can do it, but actually, if you think about what matters as to be a musician, you want to think about art as an indivisible human experience. Things like focus, inquiry, embodied. So, why was interdisciplinarity so important? It really matters what you think creativity is before you start using AI. So if you think this is the case, then you can think machines can be creative. And I'm going to show you a clip from News at 10 a few years ago. So in the left corner is me thinking that it's Dewey. I care about this. I care about this as a musician and a scientist. But there are other people in the computational creativity world. And here is, I'm only interested in AI as a tool to support human creativity in music making. I have zero interest. In fact, I'm incredibly skeptical and scornful of people who try to do that. I don't get it. Music is about being human. And this doesn't make me very popular in the computational. I actually haven't got a paper published in several years there. It's quite funny. Here is me arguing. So I'm the musician brought in to play the music of something written by a computer, and is that because it's on battery? That's right. Here we go. This is 1 minute clip on News at 10. You'll get where I'm coming from.
Maybe it might. Hi guys, back in London, let's see the academics.
So this guy's computational creativity. Very lovely guy, very smart guy. How can I turn it up? You do it in there? Yeah.
No, it's
Task has been set to create an original jazz score with sound.
It's full sound here. Well, you didn't hear any of that, but the point is, there are very, important professors working in computer science and artificial intelligence who believe machines can be creative. And that comes from a post-war view of cognitive science and creativity that was just brought into existence. And you can trace it back to advertising, a book called Your Creative Power, and this word creativity and how that was brought into modern psychology. I want to play some music now, so is that as loud as it's going to be? Might be. Okay. I just want to show you some systems, right? So all the systems that I've worked with are about what it is to be a musician. And I'm interested in AI to stimulate, provoke, challenge, and the stuff Dave was talking about moment to moment. Here is long-term friend and collaborator who said to me he was a big rival to Erkam, actually, though. He said that Erkam hated Francois Pachet at Sony, and Francois Pachet at Sony hated Erkam. He's very much of the kind of philosophy about being a musician. Erkam, perhaps there's some stuff that's quite hard to listen to, I would say. Okay, but here's one example. Here's one example, just so you get an idea. This is Francois Pachet. He just came to Goldsmiths. I've never played with this new system. I don't know what he called it, but here we go. Here's what it sounds like. No. I'm sorry,
Can you
Jude.
not press the play button on the computer?
Yeah, maybe. So this is like half human, half machine.
That's Francois Pachet on the right.
Sorry. Thank you so much. Oops. So he's doing things that he couldn't do as a human, but he still has autonomy, he still has control. But there's some nice bits. Here's another system, again, I was worked on when I was at Sony, working with Francois, called the Reflexive Looper. The idea is you play in the bass line, you play in the chords, you play in the melody or improvisation, and it's working with you. You become a band. So let me just show you a little bit of this. So you play in the bass line, and you play in lots of different bass lines. It takes time to feed. Dave talked about lots of data. This is before big data. I'm playing in everything myself. Okay, that's a bit boring. Let's do a bit more. Now I'm playing the tune. You get the idea? What I'm doing here. So the bass line is me, the chords are me, but there's copies of myself playing with each other. So technology enables me to become better, not better, different. It explores some ideas. So you get the idea. The idea that we can be better. Now I solo and it recognises that, so it switches to other modes. Right. Here's another very interesting system. Matthew E. King, my long-term collaborator at Goldsmiths. According to the BBC, this was the first time an AI, it's a shame this is a photograph on the BBC website, because he was not playing a system. So he built the AI system and put it up against Martin Speake, a leading sax player, and this is what it sounded like. And this was a few years ago now, and I don't think it was the first, but it's an AI system performing autonomously with a sax player, and it sounds a bit like this. Not everyone's cup of tea. Okay, it wasn't that short, so that's slightly edited, but I recognise the time. When you put it on here, here's something. Dave invited me into the touring. This is I'm quoting Dave. Because this is a critical thing. If you look at the history of AI and music, there are very few AI systems that people want to use. Because they're just not that interesting. They're not made for users. People don't like to give up their creativity to a machine. But the system which I'm about to try and play for you, if the technology works, don't go anywhere, this is a really extraordinary story. So it's really Matthew's the programmer and I'm the musician, so we collaborate and we've built it together. This is a proper piano player. He's very well respected in Barcelona. I was on sabbatical. He came and played with the system and he said, I want to use this. I want to go away. Because normally you have to pay people, which is why I think the New York thing is a fantastic thing, Dave. It's quite rare that you get invited to do these things when you haven't, normally you have a big grant and you pay musicians to do something. He sat down to pay me, I want to use it. And he did, and he was just on the radio, literally about 3 days ago, talking about this and showing, what the potential are for teaching, he's also teaches at the Catalan Music School. Just going to play you a little bit of it. Doesn't matter whether you like it or not. What's interesting is he did all the learning. He took it home and trained the system. Here we go. So the AI system's playing, violin's playing, the piano's playing. This is a bit more esoteric, shall we say. It's not harmony, but the system is triggering different events. He's not playing. So I put this slide in because Maria Pia is a singer who worked with John Taylor. John Taylor, Dad, you mentioned him, didn't you, at some point just now? To Dave, when we were rehearsing? Anyway, so she's a famous singer, and I was working in the Polytechnic di Milano. It's a really hard problem to get musicians to want to use AI. This was a 3-day workshop. I played some of it. And she's really keen to use technology. And we built this thing with feedback, so she had a sense of what the machine was seeing in her, moment-to-moment interaction that Dave talked about, a really critical part of being a musician. Lots of us working on this thing. Sorry, yeah, private. Didn't mean to do that. it's a really hard problem to build something that people want to use. And so here are some of my reflections, and they're very aligned with Dave. You can't do AI without doing ethics really seriously. We as academics, as anyone working in this field, you've got to take this seriously. What matters is music, and what, you know, a lot of the big companies and what some researchers who just want to show you how good at AI they are, they miss the point that music is a human thing, you know, hence the humanities and the criticality of that. There's a very important thing that Stuart Russell, who's a British mathematician now at Stanford, Dave, is he at Stanford? I think he's at Stanford. He said the value alignment problem. The challenge for now is not AI that can be like humans. The challenge is to make AI that's behavior, what it does, what it embodies, how it acts, is provably aligned with human values. And that's something that I spend a lot of time in my own research. But things like most musicians, most creators, they don't want to give up their creativity to a machine. They want to be provoked by it, stimulated by it, challenged by it, taken off their normal trajectory by it. You give it more autonomy, it doesn't have so much trust. So there's a balance between autonomy and trust. And, you know, this is the musical experience, going back to Dewey. You want music to be rewarding for the player and the listener, and we're going to show you how to do that later. So I don't know, Dan, it's your call. Do you want me to do 1 minute trying to play, or should we move to doing proper music?
Okay, go and do it. But try and be quick. Actually, Francois Page is amazing. Looking him up on the internet,
Yeah.
one of the things he does is you play something to the system and it echoes it back, but it has its own version of it, and so you can use it for composing. So you can play something, and very often the machine echoes back something which is more interesting musically than the original thought. So he sees that as a sort of device that composers can use to get some new ideas.
Yeah, so we developed this to be something that actually is more like a performance. So Francois' stuff was more like repeat, echo, repeat. So So why is this interesting? Of course, I've lost the thing. The part of the problem with the ethics of AI is it uses other people's data. And, you know, all of these systems, they go and they appropriate the music of other people, of human people, without those people knowing. And so it might sound a bit like Bach, it might sound a bit like Keith Jarrett, but that's because it's trained on loads of Bach and loads of Keith Jarrett. Is it really surprising that we leave statistical patterns in the world, particularly in music, the Western music tradition? No, it really isn't surprising. So, you know, why people want to work on making something sound like Bach for 3.9 seconds when it used to be 3.8 seconds, I truly don't get it. And I'm very happy to say that to people. I thought, well, Dave, what do I do? I have to go here, don't I? The audio MIDI settings. This probably won't be everyone's cup of tea, but the point is, it's ethical. The data comes from me. There's no, it provokes me because I don't know how it's going to behave. So there's a sense of, it's not reading them. Is your piano on, Dad? We could do this afterwards.
No. It is now.
It is now, okay. So let me just take that out. If this doesn't work, oh, it's there.
Good.
Okay, so it's there. Do this. So again, it's technology. Look, make your own mind up. But I'm trying to develop these ideas around moment-to-moment interaction. Dave, you know, you said it right at the end of your talk. What matters is, does this help me in some sense become a better listener, a better musician? Because I don't know what it's going to do.
Can you come round to me?
I'll only do this for a minute, and then you can have proper music, I promise. And this is probably going to be the future, isn't it? We think about, we're still on screens and we're still on phones. The way we interact with technology, it's still very typey. What's going to happen eventually is we're going to have this moment-to-moment interaction with technology, an embodied moment-to-moment. So people like Dave and me who are working in this field, I suspect we really need to get this right because this is the future. And we need to really think hard about the ethics, the experience, the psychology, the social psychology of it all. Anyway, I'll play. I'm going to take my hands off because both sounds are the same. The other thing is, the AI never knows when to stop. So there's nothing I can do about it, and it's a really hard problem. So I'm afraid there is no special magical moment of machine and human coming together. But anyway, thank you very much for listening, and now we're going to play some music. My friend. And she saved me about 3 times.
Are there any questions?
I told you, I'm going to turn the thing off. Still going, and it will go forever, yeah. You've had your chance, AI. That was it, my friend. Right. Well, it shouldn't be playing. I don't quite understand it. Dave?
It's not plugged in anymore.
Now, this is the moment. Everyone said this is what's that moment called?
Singularity.
The singularity. This time, it's just happened. That was bizarre that it's carried on playing. Have you got any explanation for that at all, Dave?
None at all.
None at all. I do know. That was entirely unexpected.
That's the
Well,
pressure.
Yes.
It's real, it's happening.
I'm out of a job
They've
now.
taken over.
Yes, exactly. I can't need it explained.
Are there any questions
Yeah,
while we
sorry.
set up? Oh yes, okay. To the back first and then here. Thank you.
I find it completely fascinating what you're saying about creativity and working with the industry. And how do you feel as a musician about if you did create something extraordinary with a machine? In this, you play it plays back, you create something, it's co-composition. And who, in the end, does own it? Do you feel that you own that in the way that musicians have owned their opus in the past, or do you feel uncomfortable about that issue? I'm not talking about intellectual property rights, but was it to own something co-created with machine?
Do you want to go first, Dave, and I'll go second?
Yeah, because actually,
Good question, by the way.
Good question for you. Thank you for asking. How do we feel? Because that's basically
It's really
interesting.
important. Yeah.
And I'll give the easy answer to a slightly different question, which is, sorry, obviously there's a lot of discussion about who owns what with AI at the moment. One of the things that people don't recognise when you see this in the media is that the position in the UK is actually different to elsewhere. So we've had copyright on computer-generated works for a very long time in this country. Human owns the copyright, but it is a well-established thing, and it isn't the case in other countries. So it's a very interesting situation. But how does it feel, Mark?
I mean, that was slightly nerve-wracking. Just try and make it. I mean, I can feel that it was quite challenging for me to try to do it. I don't think it's as good as me playing with another bass player or piano player. So I think we're an awful long way. But what I think it might be, the thing that I'm really interested in is would it help children or other people who haven't explored music get more confidence in this ability to have a moment relationship with themselves and be open to exploring themselves? And so I think there's potential there. And I think it's a lovely little tool for me to talk about the ethics of AI and the experience of AI. But would I want to do and I have played this on proper concerts, but no more than 3 minutes. That's plenty, And I think it's interesting. And one of the things we didn't talk about is what's the experience of the audience. We go, it's a really hard thing that is often overlooked by AI researchers working in music. If we believe that music is about the experience, then we often overlook the experience of the audience. So I feel that was tough for me, but I don't feel anywhere near. I'd rather still play with Ray and Dave later. But you can make your own mind up about that.
Not later, but how about now?
I think there was one more question.
Thank you. It's a lovely question.
Thank you. Yes.
I was just wondering on the ethics standpoint, is possibly leaning more into machine learning. There's a voice synthesizer program that's come out recently, and one of their, I guess, advertising points is they use AI, but their data set they got by commissioning singers to specifically, like, you are going to sing these things, and that gives us a data set. We're specifically doing this for AI. Do you think this would be, like, a good path forward, or potentially maybe a red herring?
Dave first, then give me thoughts.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the things we're thinking about are probably already happening, and it is already the case. And we found this with a hip hop track. We could generate all sorts of things in the style of various people because they've given permission for that. So some artists have actually made the material available for reuse in this way. So I think we're seeing the infrastructure of music adapt, and that's what happens in music. At any point in musical history, there's a genre that comes out of the technology of the time. We're seeing that happen now, and we're seeing the ecosystem adjust.
Yeah, so I you will get to play the piano, Dad. So I do another talk, and Dave and I gave a talk recently at Jesus College and shared the platform in the same way. There's something extraordinary about music when it touches you, and we talk about this. I think the English, we say it sounds right. And so I think for people to explore the nature of their creativity and perhaps to come up with some post-production ideas, I don't have a problem with it because the ethics seem from what you describe. But ultimately, what do you want? I want a relationship with the human being playing the music. I don't want too much technology in the way unless it helps me somehow get more emotionally into the music. But we're all different, I guess.
Yeah, I've just used it because I'm not very good at singing.
Yeah, great. It gives you more confidence to sing. Brilliant. Yeah.
So I really would like to play a little bit because I know some people have to go. I would like to hear at least a couple.
Do you have one more question? Yeah.
Oh, no, what about no more questions? Because she's got to go. I would like to play for you.
Do it at the end for you.
Yeah, we'll stay and answer your question. Sorry.
Except it's not working. Oh God, technology. Oh God, please work. My headset's not good enough to see how to put this plug in. Yeah. You're still here. I know you two have got to go, and you've got to go because you said apologies now, so please just go. One day next June. That's if the rest of you want to stay. We won't go on for much longer. That was Autumn Leaves. This is called Bessami Mucho. Kiss me a lot. So, bye, my friend.
Nice to see you back.
I'm aware of the time, and I think we should finish. We had a few more things, but one thing I wanted to play was me playing. I don't know what the name is. What's that called? Things ain't what they used to be. Things ain't what they used to be, because that's what I play at the beginning of my course. So at least 50,000 people have heard me play this. So I'll just play that, and then we're going to our closer. So our closer is something I think you'll all know if you're old enough to. So we won't play that because of the time. Are you with me? I'm just going to play the tune on my own.
Okay.
And then we're going to our closer. So you haven't got the music for the closer up. That would be good. So this is what at least 50,000 people have heard, assuming they played it all the way through. Drum solo from Mark Gimbo. On the bass, Dave Drum, Dave Drum. On the drums, Mike Inferno. So thank you for coming today. It's really nice to see you. I hope you enjoyed some of the talks. Hope you enjoyed a bit of the music, not quite as much as I was hoping for, but we did have a few questions and probably a few more as well. But anyway, thank you. Mark on drums, Dave Durrell on bass, Ray Devon on piano. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much.
The key thing is, did June understand it?